holds Addis Ababa residents rally supporting defense forces for taking action against terrorist TPLF. Hello and welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Daniel Kasahun with the news. Residents of Addis Ababa converged in Meskel Square to show their support for the National Defense Forces and to take action against the terrorist TPLF. Many residents marched to Meskel Square chanting slogans in support of the defense forces and against the TPLF atrocities. It was also mentioned that the residents are keen to support the measures taken to ensure the sovereignty of the country and show their support for the defense forces. It's also said that the demonstration was organized by the residents at the request of the residents regarding the successful completion of the second round of the grand filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Speaking at a rally in the Addis Ababa Meskel Square, Deputy Mayor of Addis Ababa, Adanesh Abebe said Ethiopia is a country based on rock that will not be dismantled by a terrorist group. The Deputy Mayor of Addis Ababa thanked the members and leadership of the Addis Ababa Women and Youth Association for organizing the protest.
شكرا لكم أيها الحضور، شكرا لكم أيها الإثيوبيون، شكرا لكم سكان أديس أبابا. قضينا وقتا ممتعا ونتمنى لكم يوما سعيدا. Thank you all very much. Go home in peace. Thank you very much.
That was the demonstration held this morning at the Addis Ababa Meskel Square in support of the National Defense Force and in connection to the successful completion of filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dina Mufti, expressed the need to exert efforts that help facilitate institutional reforms in the diplomatic arena. Governments moved to undertake reforms on the country's foreign policy is said to be vital. Kasan Channe has more.
ETV English approached Dina Mufti to learn the country's latest move in reforming its foreign policy. Dina said the government's intention is not to cut the number of embassies, but to undertake swift institutional reforms that help galvanize Ethiopia's diplomatic sector.
To make our diplomatic institutions efficient, to make our embassies and consulate offices efficient, in fact, with the consideration of the austerity measures as well. Because of the COVID, and because of international economic situations and other situations, there is a need for austerity measure as well. There is a need also for digitalizing the diplomatic practices. You can make effective diplomatic moves around the world by also, rearranging, reestablishing and reshaping your institutions like the embassies. And that is the intention. Otherwise, the details of which embassies to be closed and which embassies are to stay or to merge has not come out yet. And it's something that is going on and something that is under study, and hopefully we'll make it public in a short while. But the intention is not to shrink our international relations in the representations, but the intention is actually to create institutions that could be as effective as possible.
In a similar development, Ethiopia's long-serving ambassador, Runa Zena, on his part underscored that diplomacy is managed not by cutting the number of embassies, but by making reforms. Assigning the right person at the right place would be an important tool to do so, he added.
There are places like New York, Geneva, Addis Ababa, and others where negotiation takes place every day by many interested parties. Ethiopia must be safe. Ethiopia must be negotiated. And you need also ambassadors and diplomats in strategic areas where your interests are very much high. Okay. Also, there are you need to train every diplomat in neighboring countries, because you cannot get through public communication or other means certain information. So in that respect, you have to assess where you should assign an ambassador or where you should open an embassy. Study has to be made. You simply can't say, okay, we don't have an embassy here, let us open. What interest do we have, say? What are things which we cannot get through other means, public? Or our interest in that country is, how big is our interest in that country? We should assess all those things and open, because these days foreign currency is Ethiopia's main constraint for everything. So you have to economize. But we should not close all embassies, or we should not disregard.
Meanwhile, another political expert, Ndala Naguse, shares Runa's stand in strengthening the nation's foreign policy, calling upon all states to play their share in this regard.
You can see, at this time, Ethiopia is promoting citizenship diplomacy. Ethiopia has been promoting public diplomacy. This is right for Ethiopia. You can see regarding our long history, regarding our resources, regarding our diversity. Basically, all these should work in citizenship diplomacy. Every Ethiopians at home, again abroad, should be, part of the diplomatic process, including the media, all stakeholders. So the government already, again, based on this, the government has to change the platform again. At this time, diplomacy cannot be achieved only using few diplomats. So the government at this time should change the platform based on, the intention of its main principle. The diplomacy should be based on citizenship diplomacy. Again, public diplomacy, this cannot be done using only few embassies. So that is why, the very issue is, the platform should fit with this intention, this thing. So, Ethiopian can take this summon, every Ethiopian throughout the world, and like that of God. This is the intention, maybe issued by the Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed. That is the intention. Maybe some may just incline with closing it. No.
It is to be recalled that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed suggested to cut the number of embassies while addressing the parliament early this month.
You're watching Midday News of this news hour. A senior water expert says Egypt and Sudan should not hinder East African region to get energy from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Downstream countries should not undermine the negotiation effort by the continental organization, the African Union. Stayot Amra reports.
Talking to ETV English, senior water experts said the people of Sudan and Egypt are our brothers and Ethiopia will not harm them in building a hydropower dam on the Abai River. They should understand the benefits they get from the dam and tell their leaders and politicians to show fairness to Ethiopia's dam.
The politicians will get changed. It's normal. So, understanding our brotherlyhood with Ethiopians, They need to say for their leaders, for their politicians, what they are doing is unfair, and they need to understand what we are doing to. So the people of Sudanese and the Egyptians, GERD is for all of us, not only for Ethiopians. It's for the Sudanese. With a measurable number we can talk. It's for the Egyptians.
The expert also said Egypt and Sudan should not hinder East African region to get energy with Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
They need to understand also we have the right to get better the livelihood of our mothers, those who are suffering in village by deforesting, using firewood. Let them get better. Those poor youngs who are graduating from university, let's give them opportunity. To get the opportunity, we need a power. Let the Sudanese understand that. Let the Egyptians understand that. So that the entire region of this East Africa will get a better life for all African people. That's one issue.
Haptamu further advised Sudan and Egypt not to undermine the trilateral negotiation efforts by the African Union.
For the politicians, let them not undermine the African Union. Indication for their undermining of the African Union negotiation leadership is for whatever they try to take to United Security Council or to USA or to European Union. That's all speaking is unfair. Better to respect the Africans and stay in touch with the Africans and make the African people bind together for common prosperity, for common betterment of the life. So if they understand this, for sure, one day, the Egyptians, the Sudanese, they will thank Ethiopians. Besides that, they need to understand also, this GERD, this dam, is getting built by the money of poor mothers, by our fathers, by our mothers, by youngsters who are staying in a village. They have no excess money, but they think, let my coming children will get better lives than me. That's how we are building. This money is the money of the poor people, not by any kind of fund, not by donation, or not by any excess support we are attaining. Once they understand this, things will be done for us. This is my clear message for Egyptian politicians and the leaders.
The Ethiopian government announced Monday that it has completed second filling of East Africa's mega hydropower dam project.
Thousands of residents from Hawassa city and Walaita zone have taken to streets in celebration of the successful completion of the second round filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Demonstrators carried placards appreciating contribution and commitment of all Ethiopians in the country and abroad in the construction process of the dam. They also denounced the atrocities of the TPLF that target civilians in the northern part of the country, reaffirming commitment to stand by the National Defense Force and with the special forces of regions to counter belligerence of the terrorist group. Sidama region reaffirmed continued support to the National Army in the fight against the TPLF group to preserve the law and order and defend sovereignty of the nation. Welcome back. You are watching at this news hour. In celebration of 30th anniversary of opening of Chancery in Tel Aviv, high officials and members of the diplomatic communities of Ethiopia and the State of Israel held consultative meeting aimed to foster development cooperation between the two countries. Ethiopian ambassador to Israel, Reta Lemon, said the consultative meeting was aimed to facilitate similar regular platforms with a view to transform the multifaceted cooperation between the two nations to a higher level. Head of Mashav, Ambassador Einan Schlein, for her part, reiterated Israel's commitment to further step up technical support to Ethiopia in horticulture, health, and education sector. The cooperation between the two countries is said instrumental to further deepen long-standing ties between Ethiopia and Israel. Scholars from different global entities are voicing shock over TPLF use of child soldier. They are also urging the world to strongly condemn what they call international crime and TPLF sacrificial lambs and silence means generational shame, they warn. Shfarao Lako looks into the matter.
Some international media outlets have been unveiling TPLF use of children as soldiers in the state of Tigray. Following this, concerns are coming in from different angles, urging the global communities to condemn the act. The director of the Bolzili School of International Affairs and professor in Wilfrid Laurier University's Political Science Department, Anne Fitzgerald, says the world must strongly condemn the use of child soldiers in Tigray. Silence in the face of this disaster will be a generational shame, as it is a war crime.
Children under 15, as soldiers is prohibited by international humanitarian law. Also, it is considered or defined as war crime by ICC, International Criminal Court. This has to be avoided, let alone using them as soldiers. But the mere fact that there is war in their community hurts them more than anything. So this the international community should take serious measures in this area.
The renowned journalist, author, and historian Jeff Pierce also writes that the truth about child soldiers is slowly coming out, which he called TPLF's sacrificial lambs. He says a source tells him that there are a lot of young children who were forced and brought to the front from central Tigray. Some of these kids are begging the local women to hide them. They do not know where they are right now, and they do not even know the road and the direction to go back to their parents. The TPLF are also looking for potential recruits, some of whom are high school graduates, and the child soldiers range in age between 9 and 15 years old. He also says exposing child soldiers within context is one thing, glamorizing them as freedom fighters and without mentioning that this is an international war crime is contemptible.
The use of children in wars as soldiers is a war crime. It should be it should be taken seriously, right? So TPLF forces and other forces also in Africa, including the case actually in Ghana, by the use of children as soldiers in war times by Joseph Kony of the Lord Resistance Army has been a case that has attracted the attention of the world and child rights institutions. And similarly, now we have seen pictures coming out of that, and even international media witnessing those pictures, and journalists speaking about what they have observed on the ground, right? So this should have been seriously condemned, but the media in the West is not doing so. You know, human rights institutions are not loudly speaking about it. This is something that needs to be strongly condemned.
Others are also calling on the international communities to take action. The Ethiopian American Civic Council has also asked the U.S. Department of State to condemn the use of child soldiers in Tigray by the TPLF. In an open letter it wrote to President Biden, the council reproached the U.S. government's policy, mainly run by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, for going against Ethiopia, which has been a staunch ally of the United States for over 100 years.
In business, two grant agreements with a total amount of $118.1 million signed between Ethiopia and the African Development Bank. Ahmed Shide, Minister of Finance of Ethiopia, and Abdul Kamara, Deputy Director General, East Africa Region, signed the agreement. The first project, which is known as the Ethio-Djibouti Second Power Interconnection Project, received grant funds amounting $71.3 million through this financing agreement. The second project, named Integrated Agro-Industrial Parks and Youth Empowerment Project, which has received grant funds of $46.8 million, will target the development and rehabilitation of irrigation schemes in selected areas. The project is also being co-financed by the Arab Bank, where the funds will be used to implement irrigation schemes in Sidama and Tigray region. This is according to a statement issued by the Ministry of Finance.
One of the biggest markets in Ethiopia.
Biggest in Africa.
Or actually the biggest in Africa. So well.
Roundabout. It's the biggest roundabout in Ethiopia, is it?
No.
Okay. It's a big one anyhow. And I figured out we could take a lap. So we're going around, around, and around in the roundabout. There's billboard available. Now we are at the Meskel Square, the biggest junction. This is the biggest junction, right?
Everything is the biggest.
I know, it's like the biggest junction. And if you have seen the part 1 or 2, I think the part 1, yeah, of my Addis Ababa tour, On our right side, we have the Mescal Square project.
The United States is sharing approximately 25 million COVID-19 vaccines to African countries. This is meant to enhance coverage across the African continent, contributing to the continent's target of vaccinating at least 60% of the African population. This support is found in collaboration between the African Union, African CDC, AVAT, Afreximbank, COVAX, and the United States government. The shipment of these donated doses follows President Biden's pledge to share 80 million doses from U.S. supply globally. And finally, South Africa has begun vaccinating as a look to ramp up inoculating following days of unrest which affected the campaign. Haftam Mashagre has more from Africa News.
The vaccination of correctional services on employees began early on July 15. South Africa's jails are overcrowded. There are fears of the disease spreading fast even in the facilities. The country's vaccination campaign has been criticized for being too slow, while they battle fresh ways. During the unrest, many pharmacies in Kazalona, Natal and Gauteng provinces had medicine used in the treatment of coronavirus looted. Vaccinated siders located in modern commercial centers were also forced to stop administering shots. According to the World Health Organization's Africa chief on Tuesday, the COVID-19 infections are arising following riots. South Africa had the highest COVID-19 cases and deaths in Africa, according to more than 2.2 million infections and nearly 66,000 deaths. In the past 24 hours, the toll has risen 16,400 cases, of which 377 are fatal.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has vowed that his country will work hard to build a new type of international relations and human community with a shared future. President Xi Jinping made the remark in his speech delivered on the celebration of the centenary of the Communist Party of China, CPC. According to Xi, China will work to build a new type of international relations and a human community with a shared future, promote high-quality development of the Belt and Road Initiative through joint efforts, and use China's new achievements in development to provide the world with new opportunities. Regarding foreign enemy, the president said, "The Chinese people will never allow any foreign force to bully, oppress, or subjugate them." Just to remind you the headline. The Addis Ababa residents rally supporting defense forces for taking action against terrorist TPLF. That's all for this edition. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and stay safe.